Have you ever met someone who walks into a room and instantly takes over the energy, the air, the attention as if the whole space bends around them, yet somehow, after all the charm and confidence, you still feel like you never touched the real person underneath? That feeling is not random. It means something because some people do not live from a stable self. They live from a performance. And the strange part is this: what looks like power on the outside can be hiding panic on the inside. What looks like control can be covering deep emotional chaos. And what looks like confidence may actually be a desperate fight against shame, fear, and emptiness. So tonight, stay with me because this is where it gets unsettling. We are not just talking about how narcissistic people affect others. We are talking about the private pain hidden behind the mask, the silent suffering they rarely admit, and the signs that reveal the performance is starting to crack. Once you see these signs, you cannot unsee them, and more importantly, you stop blaming yourself for the confusion they create. If you have ever wondered why they seem magnetic one moment, cold the next, untouchable yet deeply reactive, this will connect the dots. Watch closely because the truth is darker, sadder, and more revealing than most people expect. On the surface, a narcissistic person can look unstoppable, always moving, always talking, always doing something. Their life can seem full of energy, success, people, plans, and noise. It may even look exciting. But when you slow down and really watch, what seems like healthy drive is often emotional restlessness. They are not simply active. They are running. Running from silence, running from stillness, running from the terrifying moment when there is no audience left to reflect a polished image back to them. Because in quiet moments, they are forced to sit with thoughts they have spent years avoiding. That is why they often jump from project to project, person to person, goal to goal. One day they are obsessed with something. The next day they drop it with no real closure. Not because they found peace, because staying long enough would make them feel what they are trying not to feel. And that feeling is often emptiness. Stay with this part because it explains so much. Their speed is not freedom. It is escape. Their busy life is not always purpose. Sometimes it is protection. The mind keeps moving, so the deeper self never gets a chance to speak. And when someone cannot be alone with their own inner world, they begin building a life that looks full from far away while feeling strangely hollow up close. That restless energy does not stay inside them. It spills into every relationship they touch. They often need to be noticed, included, admired, or emotionally centered in every space they enter. If attention shifts away from them, even for a moment, something in them tightens. They may interrupt, dominate the mood, create a small crisis, or suddenly become dramatic. It can look like confidence, but beneath it is a fear of disappearing. To be overlooked feels unbearable. To not matter in the room feels like emotional erasure. And that is why so many of their interactions feel intense, fast, and strangely draining. They often cycle through people quickly, especially once the other person stops feeding the image they want to maintain. At first, they can seem deeply engaged, charming, fascinated, even emotionally present, but over time, the connection becomes harder to hold. Why? Because real intimacy requires steadiness. It requires being known. It requires letting another person see weakness, confusion, need, and imperfection. And that is exactly where the danger begins for them. So they keep movement alive. They keep people slightly off balance. They create highs and distance, attention and absence, closeness and confusion. This is why being with them can feel like trying to hug smoke. You sense a person there, but never fully. And the painful truth is this: they often fear being alone, yet the very defenses they use guarantee isolation. That is the trap. They want connection, but they defend themselves against the only kind that is real. Another sign of hidden suffering is rage, and not normal anger either. Not the kind that rises, speaks, and settles. This kind of rage is sudden, sharp, and often far bigger than the moment itself. A small disagreement can set it off. A joke, a delay in response, a mild correction, even a facial expression they do not like. And when it happens, the reaction can feel wildly out of proportion. That is because the moment is not just the moment. Underneath it, something deeper gets touched. Shame, fragility, exposure. The fear that the carefully built image is being questioned. So they do not react as if they were simply annoyed. They react as if their entire identity has been threatened. Sometimes the rage is loud, yelling, insults, intimidation, sudden cruelty. Other times it is cold and controlled, silent treatment, punishment, a cutting change in tone, a withdrawal designed to make the other person feel confused and guilty. This matters, so do not miss it. The purpose of this rage is usually not resolution, it is defense. It is about regaining control, crushing discomfort, and pushing away the unbearable feeling of vulnerability. They may also project in these moments, accusing other people of exactly what they cannot face in themselves. They call others selfish, weak, fake, dramatic, jealous, needy. But often those words are reflections of what they are fighting inside. And every time this cycle repeats, relationships become more unstable, more fearful, and more emotionally dangerous for everyone around them. No matter how much praise they get, it rarely lasts. Approval fades too fast. Admiration expires too quickly. The compliment that should have filled them up for a while barely touches the deeper wound, so they go searching again. Another win, another audience, another moment of being seen. This is why validation becomes like oxygen for them. Without it, they may feel flat, invisible, irrelevant, almost unreal. That is why external success does not bring peace the way people expect. A promotion is not enough. Attention online is not enough. Being admired in public is not enough. Each moment of recognition gives a temporary lift, but then the drop comes. And when the drop comes, it can feel severe. You may notice them becoming restless after success, not calmer, more demanding after praise, not softer, more insecure after being celebrated, not more grounded. That is the paradox. They are not feeding joy. They are managing a wound. And because the wound is internal, outside attention can only soothe it for a moment. It cannot heal it. This creates a relentless chase. They become addicted to being mirrored by the world, to being told they are special, desirable, important, superior, unforgettable. But the more their worth depends on outside feedback, the more fragile their inner world becomes. If the applause stops, even briefly, anxiety rises. If someone else gets noticed, tension rises. If they are not centered, the emptiness starts whispering again. And that whisper can be brutal. It says you are not enough. You are fading. You are nothing without reflection. That is why they keep performing long after everyone else is tired. Envy plays a bigger role than most people realize. It is one of the most hidden and corrosive emotions in this pattern. A narcissistic person may act superior, dismissive, above it all, but inside they can be deeply disturbed by the success, beauty, talent, warmth, or authenticity of someone else. They may not openly admit it. In fact, they usually will not. Instead, the envy comes out sideways, in sarcasm, in subtle insults, in lack of support, in forced indifference, in small acts of sabotage. They may downplay another person's achievement, question their motives, mock their happiness, or suddenly act cold when someone else shines. This is not because they are strong. It is because another person's light activates their own hidden feelings of lack. If someone naturally carries a quality they crave but do not truly feel inside, it can be almost unbearable to witness. So they attack what they secretly admire. This shows up in love, friendship, family, and work. A partner they once praised may slowly become a target. A friend's success may be met with distance instead of joy. A talented coworker may be undermined instead of celebrated. And here is the deeper twist. Often they do admire the person deeply, but admiration feels dangerous because it places them lower in comparison, and they cannot tolerate that emotional position for long. So admiration hardens into resentment, warmth turns into competition, respect becomes devaluation, and once that happens, the relationship shifts. You stop feeling seen, you start feeling measured, challenged, or quietly punished for simply being who you are. There's also a deep fear of being forgotten. And this fear drives more behavior than many people can see. They do not only want attention in the present, they want to stay in people's minds. They want to leave a mark. They want to be the person others still think about, talk about, miss, compare others to, or feel shaken by long after the interaction ends. That is why they may create emotional intensity even when peace is possible. They would rather be unforgettable through drama than ordinary through calm. Rejection can hit them especially hard, not only because it hurts, but because it threatens their sense of significance. If someone moves on too easily, finds happiness elsewhere, or stops reacting, it can feel like a deep insult to the identity they built. So they may reappear, or provoke, or go cold in a dramatic way, or stage their distance so it leaves a mark. The goal is often the same, to preserve importance, to avoid fading into emotional background. This same fear can shape their choices in work, image, even lifestyle. They may constantly reinvent themselves, not from true growth, but from panic around irrelevance, a new role, a new style, a new belief system, a new identity package. The outside keeps changing because the inside never feels secure enough to rest. Watch this closely. The fear is not just being unseen by others. It is being unseen by themselves, without attention, without reaction, without emotional echo. They may feel like they disappear, and that makes ordinary life feel unbearable. So they keep creating noise, tension, beauty, success, conflict, mystery, anything that keeps them emotionally alive in the eyes of other people. Even when they are alone, the performance often does not stop. This is one of the saddest parts. The audience may leave, but the internal theater keeps going. They replay conversations. They imagine future interactions. They mentally edit scenes to make themselves look stronger, smarter, more desired, more wronged, more impressive. They rehearse what they will say. They imagine how others will react. They build narratives that protect the image and soften the truth. It is exhausting, and it also reveals something painful. Their identity has become so dependent on external reflection that they no longer know how to simply be. They know how to present. They know how to impress. They know how to defend. But being quiet inside without editing themselves for impact feels foreign. This is why peace can feel strange to them. Peace does not give enough reflection. Peace does not prove superiority. Peace does not offer a dramatic role. So stillness becomes threatening, and ordinary emotional life starts to feel too empty. This helps explain why their achievements so often fail to satisfy them. The moment they reach something, the emotional high fades, and then the old discomfort returns. Another goal is needed, another storyline, another proof of worth, another stage. Stay with me, because this part changes how you see the whole pattern. They are not only performing for others, they are performing to survive their own self-perception. And that means the persona is not just a mask they wear. Over time, it becomes the only self they trust. Without it, they are forced to face the raw fear underneath. And for many of them, that fear feels unbearable. Real closeness becomes almost impossible under those conditions. They may want love. They may chase it intensely. They may even look deeply romantic or emotionally expressive in the beginning, but wanting love and tolerating intimacy are not the same thing. Intimacy asks for something they often have not built: honesty without image control, trust without manipulation, vulnerability without performance. At first, they may idealize someone, making that person feel completely chosen, deeply understood, and emotionally central. It can feel powerful, almost unreal. But once the relationship asks for mutual depth, the fear starts. If the other person has needs, pain, disappointment, or emotional complexity that cannot be controlled, the narcissistic person may become defensive, distant, irritated, or cold. Not always because they do not care at all, but because another person's real inner world makes demands they cannot easily manage. It asks them to leave the stage and enter a shared emotional space, and that feels dangerous. So they often replace intimacy with control. They create relationships where they are admired, needed, depended on, or chased, but not deeply known. This is why the dynamic can become push and pull so quickly. They pull someone close through charm and intensity, then push them away when genuine vulnerability appears. The partner is suddenly called too sensitive, too needy, too emotional, too demanding. But often the deeper truth is this: the closeness became real, and real closeness scared them. So they protect themselves the only way they know how, by weakening the bond before the bond can expose them. This is also why many people around them feel lonely even while being deeply involved with them. A partner may be physically close but emotionally starving. A friend may be included but never truly safe. A family member may keep showing up but still feel unseen. Conversations often return to the narcissistic person's world: their needs, their injuries, their image, their plans, their frustrations. Empathy may appear when it serves the moment, especially if being supportive enhances how they are seen, but sustained presence during another person's pain can be difficult for them. If the spotlight stays on someone else too long, discomfort rises. They may interrupt the emotional flow, minimize what happened, compare it back to themselves, or shift the topic entirely. That does not mean they never feel anything. It means their own self-protection often overrides their ability to remain present in another person's reality. And because of that, even genuine love directed at them may not land in a stable way. They may hear the words, they may enjoy the loyalty, but deep inside, they often do not know how to trust love, that is calm, honest, and unconditional. Love makes more sense to them when it is tied to admiration, beauty, status, usefulness, or control. Being loved simply for being human can feel foreign, suspicious even. So they keep testing, shaping, provoking, and controlling the relationship while secretly longing for the very safety they keep disrupting. This is what makes the whole pattern so painful. They may be surrounded by people yet still feel unknown. And the more they protect themselves from being truly seen, the more isolated they become. One of the deepest illusions in this pattern is identity itself. Many people wear different sides of themselves in different situations. That is normal. But here, the identity can become highly strategic, constantly adjusting to the audience in order to collect admiration, authority, attraction, sympathy, or trust. One day, they are the wounded victim. Another day, the bold leader. Another day, the misunderstood genius. Another day, the spiritual voice, the rebel, the healer, the expert, the one who sees what nobody else sees. The shift can be impressive. They read the room fast. They sense what people value. Then they shape themselves around it. And over time, they may believe the role almost completely. That is what makes it so convincing. The performance is not always a fully conscious lie. It becomes a survival structure. The false self grows stronger because it gets rewarded. People respond, doors open, praise appears, power increases, and each reward pulls them further from anything steady and authentic underneath. This is important, so listen closely. The more successful the persona becomes, the more trapped they can feel inside it. Because now they do not just want to maintain the image, they need to. If they stop performing, who are they? If they disappoint the audience, what remains? If they cannot outshine, influence, impress, or enchant, what holds them together? That is why inconsistency feels less risky to them than authenticity. Authenticity would require facing what the performance has covered for years. And if the self beneath the image feels small, ashamed, or empty, then the role starts to feel safer than the truth, even if it costs them peace. Modern life can make all of this even stronger. The endless exposure, constant comparison, curated images, and instant reactions of the online world create the perfect stage for someone whose self-worth depends on being seen. Every post becomes more than a post. It becomes a mirror, a score, a pulse check for relevance. The image is shaped carefully. The caption is chosen with purpose. The timing matters. The reaction matters. Who noticed matters. Who did not notice matters even more. And because online attention can rise and vanish so quickly, it feeds the same unstable cycle. Brief validation, brief lift, brief relief, then the drop, then the need for more. For some, this becomes almost addictive, but it is not only about showing off, it can also be about control, indirect messages, displaying happiness for effect, quietly provoking jealousy, broadcasting success after rejection, looking healed before they actually are, looking powerful when they feel deeply threatened. The outside presentation becomes a way to manage the emotional field around them, and this can extend into how they speak, teach, advise, or position themselves publicly. Sometimes they present as wise, highly insightful, deeply evolved, almost untouchable in their understanding. The words may sound strong, the image may seem polished, but underneath, the goal is often less about truth and more about status, admiration, and influence. That is why the substance can sometimes feel thin beneath the shine, like the performance is compelling, the certainty is attractive. But if you stay long enough, you may notice something missing: depth, humility, mutuality, real emotional ground. Charm is another major part of the pattern, and it is powerful because it does not always look dangerous at first. In fact, it often feels wonderful. They may mirror your humor, your pain, your values, your dreams. They may seem unusually attentive, unusually tuned in, unusually magnetic. It can feel like being recognized at a deep level. But often, what is happening is not full emotional meeting. It is high-level emotional reading. They study what matters to you, what moves you, what makes you open, and then they step into that shape. This can make the connection feel immediate and intense, but once your emotional investment grows, the rhythm may change. Warmth becomes distance. Interest becomes inconsistency. Attention becomes control. That change is not random. It often appears once they feel secure in your attachment or threatened by your reality. Same thing can happen in friendships and work. They are warm while the connection feeds the image, then colder when the attention weakens or equality enters the space. Material things can also become part of this performance. Clothes, technology, lifestyle, travel, luxury, success signals. These things are not always enjoyed for themselves. They are often used as proof of worth, proof of status, proof that they should be admired. And again, the tragedy is not only what this does to others, it is what it reveals about them. If your value must be constantly displayed, then deep down you may not feel it unless someone is looking. That is not confidence. That is dependency wearing expensive clothes. What makes this so tragic is that beneath all the control, impression management, envy, and emotional theater, there is often a frightened self that never learned how to feel safe without a mask. That does not excuse the damage they cause. Not at all. Pain does not erase accountability, but understanding the hidden suffering helps explain why the behavior can feel so rigid, so repetitive, and so strangely desperate. They are not just trying to win. They are trying not to collapse. They are trying to stay ahead of shame. They are trying to outrun feelings they do not know how to hold. And because they never truly slow down enough to face what is inside, the same cycle keeps repeating. They seek admiration. They feel temporary relief. Then fear returns. They seek more control, more proof, more intensity, more visibility. But nothing settles, nothing heals, nothing reaches the center. If you have been close to someone like this part matters. Their suffering is real, but it's not your job to fix it. Their emptiness is not an invitation for you to abandon yourself. Their fear is not a reason for you to accept confusion, cruelty, manipulation, or emotional instability. You can understand someone and still protect yourself from them. In fact, sometimes that is the clearest form of understanding, because when you stop personalizing their behavior, you start seeing it for what it is: a system of defenses, a fragile self wrapped in noise. A person who may look powerful from the outside while fighting a silent war within that no applause can ever end. And here is the final truth, the one that lingers after everything else. The narcissistic person often spends life trying to become unforgettable, untouchable, admired, chosen, desired, needed, even envied. But the more they build a life around image instead of truth, the more disconnected they become from their own real center. That is the deepest suffering of all. Not just loneliness, not just conflict, not just unstable relationships. It is the slow loss of the authentic self beneath the performance. They may gain attention and still feel empty. They may gain status and still feel afraid. They may be surrounded and still feel unknown, because no amount of outside reflection can replace inner solidity. No stage can create peace. No audience can give a person a self they have never learned to meet honestly. So if you have been hurt, confused, or worn down by someone like this, let this shift something in you. Their charm was not proof of depth. Their intensity was not proof of love. Their confidence was not proof of peace. And their cruelty was never proof of your lack. Look at the pattern clearly. That clarity gives you your power back. It helps you stop chasing answers in the maze they create. It helps you stop trying to earn softness from someone who may only know how to perform it. And most importantly, it reminds you that real connection does not leave you in constant doubt. Real love does not need an audience. Real strength does not panic when the mask slips. If this opened your eyes, hold on to that feeling, because once you learn to see the hidden suffering behind the performance, you also learn how to stop being trapped inside it.